Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 2nd of January of 2026. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And the most important political event is coming from Kiev. Today, according to information we have, Kirill Budanov will head the presidential office, replacing Andriy Yermak, Zelenskyy said. I instructed the new head of the presidential office to submit for approval the strategic framework for the defense and development of our state. I would like to remind you that Kirill Budanov, this is the person I'm talking about, used to be the head of the main directorate of intelligence, but now he's going to become the head of the presidential office. These days we will change the head of the main directorate of intelligence for another person. He was also submitted. This is a very important step that was made by Zelenskyy, because Kirill Budanov is the US guy. He's the US guy. He has good connections with CIA, with the intelligence service of the United States of America. So he is the pro-US person. This is a very important thing, because we need to understand that the head of the presidential office is not just somebody in the Ukrainian political, let's say, vertical. This is not something like this. Basically, Zelenskyy he appointed the next president. So basically, the head of the office of the president of Ukraine is something like a vice president of Ukraine. So, which means that most likely, if something happens with Zelenskyy, Budanov most likely will replace him, of course, using legal ways, not something that I will be a president by myself. He will be elected, there will be elections, and most likely he will fight for this presidential chair. So another important thing that I would like to point to your attention and remind you that several days ago we got report that the former commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, Zelenskyy, was planning to return back to Ukraine. He was planning to return back, and he was planning to do this on the 5th of January of 2026, and most likely he was planning to return just with one purpose: to fight for the same presidential chair. So, but there is important difference between Budanov and Zelenskyy. Once again, Kirill Budanov is the person of the United States of America. He is a CIA guy. But when talking about Zelenskyy, he is MI6 guy. He is backed with the United Kingdom. So that is why we see that two intelligence services, two big countries of the West, are going to fight for the presidential chair of Ukraine. We are talking about Kirill Budanov as a representative, or most likely as a person backed by the United States of America, and Valery Zelenskyy, who is backed by the United Kingdom. This is something, of course, that Russia will like most of all, because this fight can lead to unpredictable consequences. Because if you lose the presidential chair of Ukraine, you may lose a lot. Anyway, let's wait and see what is going to be next, because the next 14 days are very important, because within the next 14 days, the president of Ukraine, Zelenskyy, will have to make his decision that he makes every single 90 days to extend, to prolong the martial law and the mobilization or not. So this is a very important thing, and this decision will be made probably somewhere between the 14th and 18th of January of 2026. I would like to remind you that the current mobilization, the current martial law, will be finished somewhere on the 5th of February of 2026, but the Parliament of Ukraine usually adopts another law, additional law, to extend martial law, both martial law and the mobilization process, usually between the 14th and the 19th of the months before the martial law, let's say, finishes. So this is the situation. The next 10 days are going to be very important, and we see that most likely Zelenskyy is preparing himself to leave this presidential chair. The question is, who will replace him, the US guy or the United Kingdom guy? Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation on the ground. And first, let's talk about the Chernihiv area, because during the previous 24 hours we received lots of very important updates. This video was published today by pro-Russian sources, and here we can see how Russians managed to discover the launching site of drones of the armored forces of Ukraine, and then the Russians began bombing and attacking this territory with drones. Most likely Ukraine used this area also to attack the Novgorod region, the presidential residency of the president of the Russian Federation, Putin. And I would like to remind you also that several days ago we got a report that Ukrainians announced evacuation. On December 30th, Ukrainian authorities announced the evacuation of 14 settlements in the Chernigov Oblast along the Russian-Ukrainian border, concerning the rayons of Semyonovka and Novgorod-Siversky. So according to information we have, this territory was, let's say, announced as a territory of evacuation. So we are talking about this line, and there are two possible, let's say, options why Ukrainians decided to do this. First of all, is that Ukrainians were using these territories to launch drones deep inside of the territory of the Russian Federation. And the second thing is that Russians most likely will try to open, or will try to start offensive operation in this area with the purpose to create a buffer zone and to force Ukrainians to fall back from these territories, which will reduce their capabilities to attack deep inside of the Russian territory of the Russian Federation with drones. So we expect that some clashes, some heavy fightings can start in this area in coming days. Now let's talk about the city of Sumy and the Sumy direction. The Russians, as we can see, intensify their offensive operation in this region, and the Russians are attacking the direction of the city of Sumy from three directions. The first one is the original direction that we saw during summer of 2025. We are talking about the territory between the settlement of Yunakivka and the city of Sumy. And by the way, during the previous days, the Russians managed to improve their positions in these directions significantly. Basically, the Russians managed to approach the settlement of Mala Karchakovka, and the Russians shortened the distance to the village of Krapivshchina. So currently the distances between possible positions of the armored forces of the Russian Federation, the settlement of Mala Karchakovka, is less than 1.5 kilometers, and the distance between positions of the armored forces of the Russian Federation between the settlement of Yunakivka and the settlement of Krapivnishcha is less than 2.5 kilometers, which means that clashes for these territories are going to start in coming days. And this is a very important area because, first of all, if Russians take on the complete control these territories, these villages and settlements that are located inside of this, let's say, gray cloud, the Russians will be able to answer this huge Sumy forest, so the territory between the city of Sumy and the border with the Russian Federation. And this, let's say, Sumy forest will give the Russians additional protection from FPV drones that Ukrainians will try to use to attack the Russians while they will move in the direction of the city. And through this forest, it would be much more safer for the Russians to get the city of Sumy itself. Furthermore, the Russians intensify or restart their offensive operation in the direction of the settlement by the name of Miropolye. This information today was provided by neutral mappers. They reported that as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to establish complete control over this huge forest. As of the end of the 2nd of January of 2026, we still haven't received even a video that can confirm this, but we believe that in coming days we will get one. The Russians will try to attack the settlement of Miropolye with the purpose also to answer this huge Sumy forest and then to advance in the direction of the city of Sumy from the east. At the same time, the Russians intensify their offensive operation from the southeastern direction of the city of Sumy. We are talking about the territory between the villages of Vysoka and Grabovskaya. As you can see, the map has been adjusted, and we adjusted the map based on the video published by pro-Russian sources. Here we can see how the Russians, how the stormtroopers, how troopers of the armored forces of the Russian Federation were attacking this territory. And in this video we can see first artillery strikes, then Russians were securing this territory with FPV drones. And in the final part of this video, we might see how Russians were fighting with Ukrainians in a close combat. We will not watch the video till the end due to violence and casualties, but the Russians were fighting there, and a Russian soldier was geolocated right exactly at this point. So based on this video, we have adjusted the map. We see that the Russians continue advancing, and they will continue moving further along the railways, first in the direction of Krasnopilya, and then probably even further in the northwestern direction towards the city of Sumy itself. We're not saying that the Russians are planning to finish the battle for the city of Sumy in 2026, but one thing is clear: Russians will continue offensive operation until Ukrainians will send back units from other direction to stabilize the situation. So this is the offensive of this offensive was possible to start just due to shortage of manpower and huge gap between between the number of Ukrainian soldiers and Russians in this direction. I would like to remind you that Ukrainians were forced to redeploy their units from this area in the direction of the city of Kupiansk, and there are still very heavy clashes. The Ukrainians still haven't managed to establish complete control over the city of Kupiansk. The Russians used this situation and intensified their offensive operation in the area of the city of Sumy, and Russians will continue until Ukrainians return their forces back. During the previous 24 hours, lots of updates we received from the city of Kharkiv. The sources reported that the Russians attacked the city of Kharkiv with 2 ballistic missiles. As a result of attack, a very heavy explosion was recorded. Later, we received lots of videos where we might see the consequences of Russia's attack. Tomorrow, we will discuss this attack in details with the purpose to understand what exactly the Russians were trying to destroy. As for the city of Kupiansk, as we discussed, the Ukrainians still haven't managed to establish complete control over the territory. But there is another important thing: the Russians were forced to redeploy their Rubicon unit on this direction. And the Russians, according to information we have, redeployed the unit of Rubicon who specializes on, let's say, troopers and manpower of Ukrainian forces. So which means that the Russians are tasked to deal as much as possible damage to Ukrainians, not to allow Ukrainians to restore complete control over the city of Kupiansk, and of course then to carry out and organize a counter-offensive operation. As of the previous 24 hours, we received lots of videos of how Russians were hunting and attacking the manpower of the armed forces of Ukraine through the entire Kupiansk agglomeration, but as you can see, without any changes in Russian favor. But we have changes, but the changes are telling us that the Ukrainians, during their previous counter-offensive operation, managed to improve their position significantly in the area of the settlement of Petropavlovka. Based on the report published by a neutral mapper, we have adjusted the map. So we are waiting for additional updates. Both the Russians and the Ukrainians are telling us that nobody is going to give up the battle, nobody is going to give up, and in coming days we will see more clashes and more fights for this territory. Now let's discuss the situation in the Slaviansk direction. The Russians are fighting and attacking the city of Liman. There are very heavy clashes for this territory. As of now, the Russians are focused on, let's say, finding and searching the FPV drone operators of the armed forces of Ukraine and the main logistic lines. In this video, we can see how Russians attack the temporary deployment point of FPV drone operators with Dilmur missile. Furthermore, as you can see, according to these icons, the Russians established complete FPV drone control. Basically, they created the Liman kill zone between the cities of Nikolaevka and Liman itself. Currently, everything that enters this territory can be hit by Russians within seconds. There are lots of drones, and this is one of the most important supply lines that Ukrainians have to support their contingent on the territory of the city. Russians established complete control, and Russians don't allow Ukrainians to have lots of reinforcements and support in the city. So Russians continue their offensive operation, and during the previous 24 hours, few mappers reported that Russians improved their positions around the city. So this settlement is a very important settlement for the Russians. We have huge changes on the ground around the city of Siversk. This video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russian soldiers and Russian units along TO 513 road. This episode, for example, took place right exactly at this point. Ukrainians attacked a Russian soldier right exactly in this area. Based on this video, we came to conclusion that Russians most likely managed to establish complete control over everything between along TO 513 road, and we have adjusted the map. The Russians continue their offensive operation, but the most important is that now Russians control one of the most important supply lines between the city of Siversk and Zakitna, which means that in coming days, most likely the settlement of Zakitna would be taken by Russians, and then the Russians will have complete control over this line, and this will obviously improve their, let's say, logistic capabilities during the battle for the city of Liman. At the same time, we receive lots of updates from the settlement of Riznikovka. Pro-Russian sources published lots of videos of how FPV drone operators of the armored forces of the Russian Federation were attacking positions of the armored forces of Ukraine through the entire territory of the village of Riznikovka. According to this configuration of front line, the edge positions of the armored forces of the Russian Federation are located on the eastern part of the settlement, but due to these icons, we believe that the Russians are much closer to the central part than we can see right now. So we believe that in coming days, the battle for the village of Riznikovka would be finished in Russian favor. Now let's talk about the Konstantinovka direction. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of updates. The most important probably is coming from the territory of the village of Maiskaya. Here we can see a Russian soldier that raised the Russian flag on the territory of the village. This village was colored as the territory and the control of Russians based on the report of the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation. As you can see, according to this video, there is no snow, which means that Russians made this video a long time ago, but for some reason, probably for security reason, the Russians haven't published the video yet, and only today they published the video. So based on the video, we haven't adjusted anything, but this is another proof that Russians managed to improve their positions in this area and that the Russians continue advancing. As for the city of Konstantinovka, during the previous 24 hours, we received changes from N20 and 32 roads. The Russians captured this stronghold around the settlement of Alexandra Kalinova. Here we can see two Russian soldiers that entered this stronghold. Furthermore, we have a video confirming Russian control over this dense network of the fortifications between the city of Chasavyar and the city of Konstantinovka. Here we can see another FPV drone attack on the position of the armored force of the Russian Federation in the area. And furthermore, we had a report that Russians, as a result of clashes, managed to establish complete control over the railway station in the central part of the city of Konstantinovka. We haven't adjusted anything in the central part, but we believe that in coming days, the map in this area would be adjusted significantly. So this is the railway station. According to several pro-Russian sources, the station was taken by Russians today. Furthermore, the Russians continue offensive operation along the northern shore of the Kliban-Bytska water reservoir. During the previous 24 hours, the map has been adjusted according to mappers, according to different neutral and pro-Russian sources. As for the city of Pokrovsk and the Pokrovsk or Dobropolye direction, during the previous 24 hours, we haven't received anything special. Most likely, both the Russians and the Ukrainians are regrouping. Several pro-Russian sources reported that Ukrainians are preparing themselves before another counter-offensive with the purpose to answer the city of Rodinsk and to force the Russians to fall back. Ukrainians are planning to stabilize the situation in the city with the purpose to win some time. As for the Zaporozhye direction, during the previous 24 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded around the settlement of Zelenskyy. The Russians, according to information we have, began assault operation on the village, and most likely in coming days we will receive first changes. So according to different sources, these are the changes on the ground between the dates. The Russians, as you can see, are very close to the city itself. The distance between positions is around 1 kilometer, and most likely the Russians have already entered, and we believe that in coming days we will receive this update. Furthermore, we received lots of updates. We continue receiving lots of updates from the western Zaporozhye direction. During the previous 24 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded. So these are the changes. The Russians are shortening the lines in this area, trying to improve their positions and to force to fall back Ukrainians further in the northern direction with the purpose to create a gap between positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in the area of the Zaporozhye agglomeration and in the area of the Russian positions to the south. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.